But you kind of heard a little bit of a different octave in his voice there coming back from the commercial break, because he was kind of stunned by the gravity of what happened to Drew Brees, as were many. I don't think many people expected the injury to be as severe as it was, but our Ed Werder is essentially saying that Drew Brees has 3 fractured ribs on the left side of his body. They thought those were incurred in that big win over Tampa Bay on Sunday Night Football a little over a week ago. And then 2 on the right side of his body. Those were suffered in the win against San Francisco on Sunday. So that's 5 rib injuries plus that.
Is that a slab?
Possibly. What's that?
Is that a slab or half a slab?
Dry rubber. Saucy.
Saucy.
That's a half a slab.
So we got 5 injured ribs, and the 2 on his right side suffered on Sunday might have also punctured Brees' lung. So we've got rib injuries, a punctured lung. He's out for the moment. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Key is watching the play with Kentavious Street just laying down on Brees late in the second quarter. Drew was somehow able to finish off the half. He said he didn't have the energy to do it, but he had to do it for his teammates. Here's Sean Payton essentially saying with the 2 guys he's got left, Jameis and the guy that can be a little bit of a trickery quarterback, he's fine with both of them.
Look, both he and Taysom have a good feel of what we're trying to do. They pick things up. And, I feel like it's a good room.
So that's simple, short and sweet from Sean Payton. Last year, of course, you may remember, Drew Brees was hurt, Chris. They had to go to Teddy Bridgewater, who played well. He was 5-0. It's just everyone's individual opinion on what you think on Bridgewater versus Winston. But Jameis came in, played in the second half after Drew got knocked out, 6 for 10, 63 yards. Very manageable. The Saints are hosting the Atlanta Falcons this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the upcoming schedule for the Saints, the next 4 games, they got the Falcons twice, they've got the Broncos, and they've got the Eagles. So it's not necessarily murderer's row, but it's going to be up to Jameis Winston to take care of the football, and that's going to determine how much success this team is going to have, because it almost feels like this team has had a shift in identity. In past years, they've been known for their offense, but this year you're talking about them having a top 10 defense. And that's really been the catalyst for them being able to get things going. And if they're going to stay atop of the NFC South, that's what's going to have to carry them the rest of the way, because Drew Brees is going to miss a few weeks. Stephania Bell said this is going to be a couple of weeks injury, 2, maybe even 3 weeks. So you got to have somebody to be able to hold down the fort. I think that person is Jameis Winston, because they want to keep Taysom Hill in his role. But it's going to be up to Jameis Winston not to turn the football over. To me, that's the biggest key for him.
Well, I think Chris is on to something there. When you look at the defense, when they went off and they won the Super Bowl, they was one of the highest-rated defenses in the league in terms of turnover margin. They created a lot of turnovers. They created a lot of havoc. It wasn't a shutdown defense, but when you look at them and you look at Jameis Winston, one of the reasons that Sean Payton went and got Jameis is for this reason here. He knew he was going to lose out on Teddy Bridgewater, but he needed a guy just in case Drew Brees was to miss some time that could kind of just step in and he could control the turnover deal. I know everybody points and they look at the turnovers and they go 30 interceptions and however many fumbles. Jameis Winston, oh my God, what a disaster. Yeah, if you allow him to do that. If I'm having him drop back and throw the ball 40 times a game and 50 times a game, you're going to get turnovers for him, because that is what Bruce Arians and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense allowed him to do. Sean Payton is not going to allow him to trick off their season by doing that. He's going to keep him right in that little box, much like he did with Teddy Bridgewater. They went 5-0 with Teddy Bridgewater. All Teddy did was hand the ball off, a couple throws here and there. They played defense. They got in the game, and they got out with a W. And as you look at that schedule, when you talk about the Atlanta Falcons of the world, seeing them twice, you start to say, okay, he can hold it down. The Philadelphia Eagles, can he beat Carson Wentz? Absolutely. Carson Wentz will help New Orleans. He'll help them beat them. So when you start to look at that, you're like, okay, if Drew Brees is 2 to 3 weeks out, let's say it's 4, for instance. You got the Falcons, the Broncos, the Falcons again, then the Eagles before you see the Chiefs in Week 15, which at that point, whether Drew Brees was playing or not, I probably would have taken the Chiefs in this one. But he certainly can hold it down for those 4 weeks.
Well, here's the thing. I worry about whether or not that's something that Sean Payton can limit. Can you coach the turnovers out of Jameis Winston?
Absolutely.
I mean, look, no, hold on, Key. Here's the thing. We got a 5-year sample size on what Jameis Winston is. And it doesn't matter who the head coach or the offensive coordinator is. The guy gives the ball to the other team. So I know that you can do things from a play calling standpoint to try to mitigate some of that. But when it comes to Jameis Winston turning the football over, I'm not sure that even Sean Payton can keep him from doing that.
No, I think Sean can, because it's all about the plays that you dial up and you design. So if you giving him 4 and 5 reads and you want him to scan the field, that's when he gets into trouble. Mm-hmm. But if you're telling him, hey, it's Michael Thomas, it's Emmanuel Sanders, if they not there, throw it in the stand. Mm-hmm. That's a different conversation opposed to I'm trying to teach you to go through your progressions on 4 and 5 reads. He's not that quarterback.
No.
He's a guy that you got to cut the field down in half.
Especially in a new system.
Yeah,
that's the other part about it, too.
So
he's learning this on the fly. And I think the offense will be a little bit different than what we've seen with Drew Brees. You kind of have to throw out what you saw against the 49ers when Jameis came in last week, because they're not the same quarterback. They're not going to see the game the same way. But to Key's point, it's about Sean Payton making sure that Jameis Winston understands when the opportunities are there to be aggressive versus when to make sure that you take care of the football and let's just get out of this series with a punt.
Think about Teddy Bridgewater when he took over. Teddy Bridgewater's furthest throw was 25 yards.
Yeah.
Now, they were not allowing him to push the ball down the field. Everything was right in front of him where he could see it nice and clean and get it out. 3-step drops, not trying to have him do 7-step, not trying to have him do too many play actions, just nice and easy. And then Taysom Hill is still going to be in his role, like Canty said, where you're going to mix it up a little bit, where he's going to be able to come in and kind of keep the defense on their heels a little bit to get them to kind of say, okay, we don't really know exactly what this is. Is he going to run? Is he going to throw? But he won't get 20 snaps at quarterback. He'll still get his usual 4 to 5 snaps at quarterback. That's just what Sean likes to do with him.
But this is a huge opportunity for Jameis Winston. Like, he's fighting for his career now. He went to New Orleans to have an opportunity to learn under Sean Payton and watch Drew Brees up close to see if he can resurrect his career. But that's what's at stake for Jameis right now. This is an opportunity that nobody could foresee. And now that the Saints are in this position where they're going to be missing their quarterbacks for a few weeks for the second consecutive year, it's going to be up to Jameis Winston to try to hold the ship and stay afloat. And based on how he does, I think is going to determine the trajectory of his career.
His career in New Orleans, I must say, he's not going anywhere else. He will be the New Orleans Saints quarterback, depending on what happens in these next several games as a starter, moving forward when Drew Brees retire. He will not be like Teddy Bridgewater going to another team.
Interesting.
Indeed. And to Chris's point, Drew Brees is 41. He signed a 2-year deal. He's essentially halfway through it when this year is done. And the other subject that isn't being discussed, but we'll talk about it as the season goes on, this puts the Bucs right back in the division race. Right now, New Orleans is 7-2, Tampa 7-3. New Orleans swept the season series, so they have the game in hand. But if it's a 4-week injury, like he postulates, it could be a 4-week, could be 3 weeks. You maybe open the door. You sort of put it out there.
I postulate?
You postulate. You put it out there. It is possible you get an opportunity here for Brady to smell blood and say, hey, we might not have to make the wild card. If Jameis is in there for any extended period of time, we can get in there and win. And obviously doing it with Jameis's old coach, Bruce Arians.
I know we got to get out of here, get the break, but here's the great thing. Jameis doesn't have to see the Buccaneers, so he doesn't have to worry about that, right? He doesn't have to worry about playing against his old team.
You're right. Bruce, no risk it, no biscuit, as he used to say. Sean ain't going to risk it with Jameis. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. This morning, we're asking on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed, who deserves the most blame for Carson Wentz regressing? Key mentioned Wentz earlier this morning. Is it Wentz himself? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the front office for not giving him the proper weapons? Let us know. Be a part of the Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin Nation on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed. ESPN Nation presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back. So is your favorite Dr. Pepper.